Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. XRP is on our minds in this video today. Before we go into it, don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel. And don't forget, of course, to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Welcome to the channel if you're new. Welcome back if you've been with us for some time. Guys, XRP, I'm going to be talking about this for this video, mainly because of the upcoming ETF potential approvals in October. Now, I think the last actual XRP video did about a month ago. We talked about the ETF momentum, how we could potentially see XRP rising in price further. Those kind of conversations depleted slightly. I think it was this week or maybe a day or two ago, where one of the orders from the SEC relating specifically to this one, the Franklin Spot XRP ETF, was delayed to October. And I think the date actually on here is suggesting 22nd of October, which is the final day for an approve or deny outcome. Now, we'll talk about that in more detail in a bit, but I wanted to talk further about the timing of all this. I think it's really interesting. I always believe there is a theatre and a strategy behind all these things. To the general public eye, they will see one thing, while something else completely different is going on in the background. Now, I've talked about this on the channel for a long time, and that is the RTGS system, the remittance system, which is replacing the existing financial protocols, messaging abilities within finance, using the ISO 20022 compliance, which ultimately, not necessarily open source, allows in the near future interoperability, towards other different technologies and opportunities within finance. So in this instance of this topic, it can open up the ability of blockchain being fully utilized in the financial sector worldwide. Now, as of, I think it was April this year, March or April, I believe, the RTGS system was actually kind of switched on. Now, the actual deadline of when majority, if not as many as possible worldwide, in terms of banking systems, banking companies, or banks in general, need to be moved across to this new messaging XLM system, i.e. the RTGS system. Now, to put this into perspective, the Bank of England and Accenture, so those do or don't know Accenture, absolute giant company, they began this this integration a few months back, so back in April. Now look at this. Since that launch, it has successfully processed over 9.4 million transactions, valued at £35.2 trillion worth. Now that's a lot of money, guys. Now, if you remember or haven't seen it before, I did an RTGS video, I think it was about 2 or so years ago, defining November 2025 as the, not necessarily the end game, but the beginning of something very unique and different in the financial sector. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it back, because then you can catch up on all the things that have happened since, and you can literally fast forward to a month and a half's time of when this is due to go fully live and operable. Now, back in that video, I think we stated around £720 billion worth of transactions per day. Is suggesting here an average of 800 billion now. So, of course, as economies increase, populations increase, etc., transactions will naturally increase, and this number was always going to get bigger and bigger anyway. But to see that substantial amount increase in such a short period of time, or at least the citation of it, is quite incredible, really, and very palpable, really, towards what this all can mean. Now, the RTGS is familiarized across the world in different formats, different names, but the ultimate structure is what's required moving forward as a standard across the world for this new they call it resilient financial capability. Now, what I want to mention also with that is allowing the openness of potential blockchain to come into this. Now, at this moment in time, as far as I understand, blockchain is not applicable in RTGS. It has definitely been looked at and has been worked on in the past. For example, here we can see that from March this year, an article came out regarding the Bank of England and conducted a proof of concept, a POC exercise in collaboration with Ripple that tested the application of Ripple's Interledger Protocol ILP for synchronizing real-time gross settlement payments in cross-currency forms. Now, we've talked about it in multiple videos. I'm not going to go into in depth in this one. You can go and watch the previous videos around XRP and RTGS. But in generally speaking, the amount of transactions that are going through per second is phenomenal. The ability of blockchain, transactions per second, we just need to define this. I've talked about this in many videos also. It's not just about finance. Transactions per second are a transfer of an action, anything and everything. It could be processing or validating a smart contract or validating an exchange rate, whatever it might be. These things cost money. Now, to use blockchain, where especially with the likes of XRP, for example, we're not talking about one XRP here, we're talking about fractions of an XRP. Let's say like a pound, we're talking about maybe pennies, maybe less than pennies. So you can see there's a multitude of things that have been done with a lot lower cost, a lot more optimization in terms of the speed, the transparency, the verification, the processing, which is what blockchain can provide. AI on top of that, of course, can affect algorithms, forecasting, trend data, economic trends, interest rates, inflation rates, potentially could be diminished or removed if we do it properly. I very much doubt they'll do that because they want to control, manipulate the markets for years to come for sure. But those concepts as well through Ripple did also come along with the opportunity of embracing a central bank digital currency, CBDC. We've seen that falter a bit in the last couple of months. We spoke about that in a recent video. But the stable coins were moving forwards, of which Ripple conveniently has one and is conveniently being discussed with the RTGS systems. As are many other companies, of course. It's not just Ripple, but for the sake of this video, we're obviously focusing on XRP. Now, these stable coins, in my opinion, are essentially a unglorified CBDC. Eventually, it will become one, in my opinion. That's how I see it. There's no doubt in my mind that the way the agenda is going, the movement towards Agenda 30, the Davos meetings, the World Economic Forum, there's no doubt in my mind that that is the end game. So let's take step by step, get everyone used to the word stablecoin, what it actually means, how it affects people, what's the advantages of people having that ability. Then introduce the chaotic programmability aspects on top as a layer, and then you've got all sorts of chaos potentially in the near future. Anyway, digressing there slightly, but when we talk about XRPL, the $3.8 billion tokenization of the money market fund we talked about in the last video, as well as its ability to tokenize pretty much anything, and the ability to potentially enhance things like real estate, investments, market funds, mutual funds, you name it. The opportunity is phenomenal. So we've got this potentially in place from November. That doesn't mean in November XRP is going to shoot up to significant numbers. The RTGS system has a protocol for November for the world, but that is still going to take time for the full integrations to occur. And I've always said this will lead probably into 2028, into 2030, conveniently, when the agenda program needs renewing. But the principle here is that the abilities are there. The system is about to go live properly worldwide. It's quite phenomenal, really. But I've seen a lot of articles in the last few days about XRP going to $10 within the next month or two, based around the ETFs, based around the RTGS, based around ISO 222, etc., etc. Now, to put this into perspective, I could probably deliver some charts. Maybe I'll do some images in the community section on this, because I have drawn these out. In reality, guys, like the numbers of capital, or the amount of money that needs to come into the market, in particularly into XRP, is quite substantial for us to get to $10. Now, for argument's sake, let's say an ETF approval gets done. In my opinion, I think we could potentially go up to that $4 to $5 mark. $10, in my opinion, is long term. I don't realistically see that happening even in this bull run, unless something absolutely substantial happens with regards to the amount of capital that could come in. So, for example, the current price, what is it? I think it's $3. We'll go into the chart in a minute anyway. Let me just quickly reference in the background. $3. Okay. In September, I think there's an average around 240. That might be nonsense, but what is clear is the current circulating supply is around 55 billion, right? 55 billion XRP, I think. The market cap is around 130 billion, let's say. Now, for the market cap at a $10, right? So I think the calculation is 55 billion times 10 equals 550 billion market cap. That's around 4 to 4.5 times higher than today's amount. Okay, that's substantial requirement needed to facilitate that. So to get to those kind of numbers, you're probably looking at around a 420 billion increase in value, right? Which is a large amount of money. You need around 70 to 100 billion dollars of sustained new buying pressure to get towards, remotely towards, the $10 mark. Now, potentially, if the ETF approvals get put in, the RTGS system gets fully upgraded in November. The institutional inflows, for example, look at BTF's ETF, for example, back in January 2024, right? I think there's between 5 and 10 billion flowed in within that first month. Eventually, it became, I think, 50 billion by the end of the year. And then I think for XRP, starting from the beginning perspectives, a fraction of that, in my opinion, is more short term. So I think the retail cycle, like the hype aspect, could push it slightly higher than maybe the $4 or $5. But we got to take other variables into account: interest rates, inflation, how much disposable money do people have available to kick in. Also, where are people in the market at the moment? They've probably got a lot of their money fixated in XRP already, or in other assets. So there could be a bit of a hype slash FOMO kicking in. But either way, I think realistically for a $10 XRP, we need to have above an Ethereum's market cap value. So that Ethereum is obviously second to Bitcoin anyway, but I don't say it's impossible, but it would require XRP basically overtaking ETH in the value within a matter of weeks. I can't see that happening. When ETFs kicking in and the mutual funds kick in properly, and more confidence from institutional levels, and I do think that will take time. Look at the Bitcoin and Ethereum ones and all the other ones. Banks don't just immediately tick the box and go, oh, this is happening now, let's go and buy into it. They take time, they analyze, they do their risk assessments, and then in the near future, over a period of time, say a year or two, that number increases slowly but surely. I don't know. It could go absolutely mental because everyone just goes chaotic about it. I do think with the RTGS it's a bit slightly different because there is no official linkage yet, other than the articles we're just showing and the testing. Just because they're testing and opening the doors to opportunities with blockchain ledgers doesn't mean it's definitely happening. There is so much that needs to be done in the background to make that work properly. So I think that's why, and I'm not a bearish person as such, but I'm just trying to be realistic with the amount of money that really needs to come in to push towards 10. I feel like that kind of deciphers the myth a bit to actually bring it down more to a respectable level of, say, maybe $4 or $5. I've had a target in my head always in 2025 to see at least $5. And I think that's possible. And that's a great achievement, especially for me personally. When I was buying XRP, what was it, 2020? I think it was like 12 cents or something stupid. And I've held on to it since. So many out there would have taken various different positions, and I'm sure you're still going to get a profit one way or another. But, this could be a good opportunity to kind of look into the chart actually. But they're just things that we should think about, guys. Just have a think about all these different variables, these different channels of execution that can occur to potentially allow XRP to do what it needs to do to get to those higher price points. Let us know in the comments below, of course, what your thoughts are. Maybe I am being bearish. Do you think it will be 10? Do you think it'll be higher this bull run, whenever that may officially properly start? The chart at this moment in time, as I said earlier, $3 roughly. I'm just going to zoom in slightly so we can see we are bubbling around this longer term fib level of 289. So we've had the retraction down to, I think it's beginning of September, around 270. We've traced back up to around $3 or just over $3 over the last few days in various different areas of time. But it's this fib level that's interesting to me, because I think we'll probably retest it. We'll potentially come and retest that 270 again at some point. My interest would be around this 260. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the historic data, there isn't much around at that level. And do obviously bear in mind as well, if we consider this huge traction up from November last year, look at this untested ground. With the exception of back here, this has been left alone. So I'm sure this may happen after the bull run, whenever that may be, where we just see potentially a catalyst drop. I don't think, I'd be surprised if it goes under $1 again, but this gap concerns me. It's always in the back of my head. However, if we look at the macro level, we've got a slightly mini option of that as well. There's only really properly maybe one or two retests of around this 240, 250 area. So there is a possibility that if we get too stagnant, or things don't go our way in the financial markets or remits of Bank of England or whoever's doing the decisions worldwide about interest rates, etc., or things don't materialize with ETF, for example. What if the ETF fails or doesn't get approved? It will get approved eventually in the future, of course, but in this instance, along the market trend that we're in today, it could drag us back down for sure. People just go, I'm fed up with waiting again. I've done this a long time already with XRP for 2, 3, however many years. This is how fickle the market can be. So we have to do risk assessments here. This is not financial advice, but the RSIs on the bottom here, the bottom left, these are good indicators. I've got one on a 14-day and a 28-day close. This means I've got something that looks at the short term and something within that month gap. And within the last month, to be precise on this argument here, we've seen all the way up here, we've seen all the way down here, and now we've seen in the middle. This limbo mode, I don't like. I only start looking realistically when we get to the 40 mark, or even lower, 35 preferably, 32 more ideal. That's where we see more of a longer term trend. If that was around the 40-45 mark and I was in a buying position, I'd be interested. I'm not accumulating any more XRP at this moment in time because I've got enough in there just from past experiences. Just like you guys out there may have bags and bags of other ones that I don't have or have minimal amounts. It's not a competition. It's just to see where's the best ability, using our risk assessment, not being emotional, to determine the reality. You could argue that maybe I missed the boat completely if you're new to XRP. What is it going to mean to you if you buy at $3 and sell at $5? If 5 is the maximum, for example, it's not a gigantic gain, maybe not life-changing unless you've put significant amounts in. So you you play the patient game to wait for a completely lower dropped number in the near future, or in a bear cycle, for example. The bear cycle may never come back for XRP, or maybe at least not to the lower points I've seen in the past, because of where we are in the market, because of how it's evolved, because of how it's ready to be integrated. These are all the things you need to think about. It's not financial advice to an extent, but it's my opinion and thought around not making mistakes, not being emotional around it, and just taking a bit of time to assess the historic information and what's ahead, and then apply the methods of maths as well towards the things like supply, the how much money needs to come in for these price points to occur. Would that realistically come in from institutional levels in that speed of time? I'm not so sure. But saying that, XRP is very strong this year. I'm so pleased to finally see this. I do, irrespective of the jokes that are out there and the tribalism in crypto, I find it a bit odd. But I knew with XRP when I was doing the blockchain diplomas and things like this years and years ago, and I understood blockchain inside out, XRP was one of the, what I call the legacy projects, the legacy companies. It's been around for a long time. Ripple is going nowhere. But what is more exciting to me is these next 5, 10, 15, 20 years where XRP is going to be adopted pretty much worldwide and probably by nearly every bank in the world in some capacity. That's what keeps me motivated. That's what makes me not panic too much about the price points here and there. Because I do think in the long term, this is going to be a $10, $20 XRP. What I don't believe is this is going to happen overnight or in the next couple of weeks. There's already a lot of money in XRP. It needs to take a substantial amount to get to $7 or even $10. Keep those in mind as thoughts, guys. Let us know in the comments below what you think about XRP, your positions. What do you think the price will be at the end of 2025, or indeed the end of the bull run, if we ever get one? Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.